to AEW Full Gear.
Hey there, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Rassslin Rantin, and this is a review of AEW's Full Gear on November the 9th, 2019 from the Baltimore Arena in Baltimore, Maryland. Of course, I was able to attend this one live, so this was part of a very, very busy weekend for me, but it was a lot of fun. As soon as I get there, I saw a couple people who see me on the channel, so it's nice to meet some of you guys out there and chat for a bit about wrestling and everything else. I had a lot of trouble getting to the event, but I had to cross town very quickly. But anyway, the event itself, it was pretty, I mean, from being there live, and this is going to be a live perspective, not from watching it on my couch at home. The live perspective, this was a hell of a lot of fun. This show, it delivered a lot of great stuff. There was a lot of concerns about the crowd attendance going into this thing. Now, I don't know if they papered the event late or not, but I know that I don't think it was, if they did, it wasn't too much, because there were, it looked like what I saw from the map on Ticketmaster, but it filled in a little bit late. A lot of people filled in. I think the only part that was really like empty was like the hard, way at the top of the hard camera side. The rest of the seats seemed to have been sold or full, so pretty good turnout. I haven't seen it's been better than the WWE shows I've seen lately. The last couple ones I saw, Raw, I think it was 2 Raws at the arena, and they did pretty well on attendance. Now, as far as with the rating or the amount of viewers or purchases or pay-per-view buys, that's a different story. But this show had a little bit of everything, like most AEW pay-per-views have. I think the pay-per-views really shine, and you're seeing now the difference between the pay-per-views and AEW Dynamite. The match, the night started off pretty hot. They had a nice custom set for the pay-per-view. Young Bucks came out to face Powerful and Proud, Santana and Ortiz. Right off the bat, though, here's one criticism of AEW that's been going on for a while, and a lot of people picking up on it, probably because Jim Ross keeps making mention of it, is the tag team rules. At one point, Santana and Ortiz try to make a tag with one tagging the other person's foot, and the referee's like, no. And then the crowd said it was BS, which is so strange. Like, the crowd started chanting BS. I'm like, well, no, you can't. You can't tag somebody's foot. That doesn't count as a tag. I don't know. It was just a little bit weird. They said it doesn't count. I mean, I guess I can see it from the perspective that sometimes we've seen people tag people on the shoulder, blind tags, stuff like that. That counts. So I don't know. The tag team rule thing in AEW has just been a constant thing of humor and detraction and conversation between wrestling fans and, of course, Jim Ross on commentary. But I thought this was a great opening tag team match. Ricky and Robert, the Rock and Roll Express, were in the audience, and they, of course, played a part in there. My God, Ricky Morton, like, doing some crazy-ass modern-day wrestling moves at his old age, man. Dude can still go, and the crowd chanted, "You still got it." That was great to see Ricky and Robert in there. Robert never did any of that stuff anyway, so don't expect him to do any. Even when they were younger, he didn't do a lot of that stuff. I think the most he did was a flying head scissors, where he was mostly punch and kick. But that was a pretty cool match. Even though Powerful and Proud won, they defeated the Young Bucks, and one of many losses the Elite would take yet again, another pay-per-view where they're going to take a lot of L's. One match they didn't take an L in was Hangman Page taking on Pac. This is the rubber match between the two of them. This was pretty good. It had, lost the crowd a little bit here and there, but most of the crowd was really into this most of the night. I think it was just kind of settling into the card here, but I thought this was the best of the matches they've had in AEW. Adam Page wound up picking up the win, and it was something needed for him because he'd been on a losing streak, and he left. He was pretty proud. I will say, where I was sitting at, though, next to the ramp on the entrance, you can see a lot of stuff going on back and forth, and people coming in and coming out and hiding stuff under the ring and all that kind of stuff. I always dig that, going to see a live wrestling show, how they do all that trickery behind the scenes with the cameras aren't off, but we in the audience can see it. Rio defended the women's championship. I say that match went a lot better than I thought it was going to be. The match the crowd was into the least, but they managed to pull it off. Rio retaining the championship. SCU in the triple threat match for the tag titles against the Lucha Brothers and Private Party. I was really hyped for this match. It had a good flow, but it felt like it got cut short by like 5 minutes because the ending didn't really have the build I thought was going to build, given the athleticism of the Private Party and Scorpio Sky and Phoenix, who did his usual crazy stuff. Phoenix is amazing. And to see it live, this guy do this stuff in person right in front of your face, that is crazy talent right there. Phoenix, man, just amazing. It's funny. We also had there was a guy in the audience who was yelling and screaming the whole night, and it was kind of funny listening to him do all that nonsense. And I'm like, he was cheering for Pac, and Pac walks by us on our side, and he goes to high five Pac, and Pac's like, "Get the hell away from me!" So we all start laughing. He doesn't like you anyway, after all. It was an interesting crowd. It wasn't a Baltimore wrestling crowd. It was definitely a lot. You could tell it's a lot of fly-in people, a lot of traveling wrestling fans, which is what the wrestling crowds are usually made up of these days for these big events. But it was funny to see. This is a different kind of audience than I'm used to at the arena. Back to the tag match, SCU winds up retaining the titles, and like I said, the match went too quick, and this guy was yelling and screaming and all the stuff during the entire match, and everything. Every third thing he had a comment about and started making jokes. Now, during that, while he's yelling and screaming, the security guy, I guess he's the head security guy for AEW, he comes out with somebody under a blanket sneaking on our side, so I'm like, uh-oh. Then nobody else is seeing this except us on the floor. And the lights go off, and of course, it is Christopher Daniels back after he was brutalized by the Lucha Brothers, getting some revenge on him, taking back on his fallen angel one, and it was so cool that the fans in attendance, you can tell that's the AEW crowd. They are wrestling fans, and they all started chanting Fallen Angel. People remember the Fallen Angel gimmick that he had mostly in TNA. That was pretty cool to see that. Let's get to the big things on the night. We had Cody challenging for the AEW Championship against Le Champion, Chris Jericho. I love the promo packages they had for this. I love the whole setup of the whole thing. Jericho gets in there. Now, this match, after all the high-flying and craziness we had seen most of the night and all these crazy moves, these two guys wrestled a straight-up wrestling match. And I think they lost. The crowd was a little... Yeah, every time somebody would grab a wrestling hold, people started chanting. It happened during the match of Joey Janela and Sean Spears, too, which was also cool to see Tully Blanchard back in Baltimore. That was awesome. I've come up with a new phrase for them, doing 10-4 for the Four Horsemen, the 10-4. So that's what I'm going to call them, 10-4. By the way, they beat Joey Janela. That was a pretty good outing for Sean Spears. But back to the main event. The crowd was a little solemn during the first 5 minutes of this match, but it's picked up, and this is what a traditional old school wrestling match was like. It built and built and built to the end. Cody, of course, being an AEW pay-per-view, had to bleed, so he did this dive onto this ramp, which, by the way, they had the ramp that went all the way to the ring, which is very reminiscent, again, Baltimore Arena and those old school NWA, WCW, Great American Bash shows, where they always had the ramp that went all the way to the ring. That was pretty cool. But Cody wound up cutting his head open. And he did bleed on it because after the match, they had a guy out there with rubber gloves and everything cleaning up the blood stain. So, yeah, that was a bump, and he just laid there and let it drip all over the staging. But MJF is out there with Cody. As soon as he came out there, I started going, no. I've had a bad feeling about this thing. Jericho comes out with Jake Hager. Hager's getting razzed by the crowd, too. They were all over him the whole time. That was pretty funny. But they told a great old school story in this match. I think it worked wonders. It just goes to show, again, the cool thing about AEW is they can do varying styles of wrestling, from the Joshi stuff to the Wild Spot Fest to what we'll see later on after this match. And just a traditional straight-up wrestling match. And, Cody's selling a lot of the beating he was getting from Jericho, fighting for his life. Jericho gets the walls on. We think Cody's going to win, but he gets caught. The walls are on, and freaking, by this point, Jake Hager had been thrown out because the referee had caught him. And by this point, at this point, MJF throws in the towel. And I'm like, what the hell? And I was like, oh, that is good storytelling. And the crowd was livid. You can see, and you know why later on. The crowd was livid. Everybody was all crazy and yelling and screaming and everything else. Right, so Jericho winds up winning the match, retaining the AEW Championship. Him and all of the Inner Circle, they celebrate. They're drinking and partying and all this other stuff. And it's a pretty interesting little celebration here with a little bit of the bubbly. But well, I'm looking back at the ring. I'm wanting to see what's going to happen here. And everybody's, looking at it. And I love the way they played this off. They played this off like Cody was the one that was going to have to forgive MJF because MJF made a mistake. And, the consequences of this whole thing, Cody can never challenge for the AEW Championship again. So this is pretty big. And MJF blew it for him. And we all thought, okay, this is going to lead to, oh, no. And we all know this MJF thing was coming. MJF out of the blue kicks Cody in the balls, gets him a nut shot, and the crowd just erupts. They just erupt, and he walks out. That was the part. People sent me pictures. I guess I was on camera for this part. And I'm just like, I'm looking at this dude and just like, why? Just get the hell out of here. People were really pissed off at that point. Like, legitimately, there were some people in my section legitimately angry about it. Not like wrestling kayfabe angry, like legitimately mad about what happened. And one guy about 10 rows behind me threw a soda or a beer at MJF. It looked like it caught him off guard, but he played it off well. Now, there's been conflicting reports. From what I saw, the security came in, and there was a couple security guys that came in, talked to the guy, and then he, left or whatever. And the crowd was chanting, let him stay. Some people have said it was a plant. It didn't look like a plant to me. I looked behind me at the guy, and, it was 10 rows. There's a lot of people standing, but I saw security go up there, and I saw the guy leave. So I don't know. Maybe he was a plant. Maybe he wasn't. I don't know. But that was a nice little touch at the end of that whole thing. And then we get to this main event. Oh, dear God. I'm calling this main event a masterpiece of violence. This is just one of the most insane. I mean, I haven't seen stuff this crazy since EC. This is like ECW days kind of stuff. It was out there, man. I was out there. Some mid 2000s WWE, kind of stuff back when they were doing crazy shit like this. But my God, Kenny Omega, Jon Moxley, lights out match, no rules, no DQ, no nothing, and they went off. And I thought, okay, they're going to do a couple things here and there because Omega, again, I've been watching Kenny Omega for years. A lot of us know him from his New Japan stuff. He never did any of this kind of stuff in New Japan. I was yelling out, Okada never did that to you during this match. Like, the barbed wire was pretty brutal. And then I'm like, only a few rows back from it. So I'm seeing the blood starts dripping out of Omega's back and dripping out of Moxley's back. And I'm like, oh my God, they are really tearing each other's skin apart. And those were some legit shots. The broom, oh my God, the broom was worse than the bat. Moxley comes out with his, Walking Dead Negan bat, whistling and shit. And I thought the bat shots were going to be bad, but the broom was worse. Really shredded. Just shredded Jon Moxley's skin. It was bad. Caught him really nasty in the back of the head. And we saw the blood just pouring out of the back. Oh, I was like, oh my God. Because I guess one of the barbs got snagged on the back of his neck. Right at the base of your head or whatever. That was gross. Just thinking about it again makes my skin crawl. But it was a masterpiece though. We had mouse traps, we had tables, we had trash cans, and that was the lighter stuff. Everything but a ladder that came out in this match, and then they brought up the ramp past us, and I'm like, oh boy, and here they're swinging and everything else. They go out of the ring, the Bucks and Hangman Page come out, and Kenny's telling them something, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? Are they trying to stop the match? Are they trying to pull some like Hell in a Cell, Bray Wyatt, Seth Rollins thing here? No, that I'll mention that a little bit later too. No, but they come out with this board, just a board full of rolls and rolls and rolls of barbed wire. And after the match, Moxley looked at us and he was like, "Who the hell thought that up?" That was one of the funny moments. There's a lot of those throughout the night, but Omega, they both wind up going in with the dirty deeds into the damn, oh God, the mesh of barbed wire, and that looked painful. And they had to be very careful getting them out of that thing. people were just like, oh my God. Like and then it kept going. It kept getting crazier and crazier. Moxley catches a V trigger into the staging unit. They go through the staging lighting unit or whatever that thing was. And then if the match is still not over, they're still going back into the ring. And certain other promotions, like once they did the spot where they both fell, the match would have been over and everybody would be like, well, what happened to the match? No, AEW keeps going and keeps going, and then they go even further. Moxley comes in, lifts up the ring mat and the foam underneath it and exposes the wood boards. We've seen this before. We saw a lot of this last year, actually. NXT did it. Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano did it at NXT last year. There was that crazy match on Impact last year where it was just the whole match was wrestled on nothing but the boards with no ropes or anything else in it. That was crazy. But they exposed it here, and this is like, oh my God, the wooden planks. So it's basically like if you have a bed with wooden planks, you kind of know what a wrestling mat feels like. Like if you have a very, very, very thin layer of foam, put it on your over top of the planks in your bed, and then fall on that shit, and that's what that stuff feels like. Omega, they both went for some stuff and crashed and burned. Omega going up for the Phoenix Splash. I'm like, oh God, he's trying Kota Ibushi's move. Oh my God, Ibushi. Meanwhile, Ibushi's probably on the other side of the country at the same time doing the exact same move. But Kenny goes for the Phoenix Splash, crashes and burns into the damn planks. That's still not enough to get the win. Moxley finally hits him, delivers another Dirty Deeds. By the way, they used glass earlier in here, and both of them got caught on glass during this damn thing. Omega got the paradigm shift or the Death Rider, whatever you want to call it, in the glass. This time he gets it on the boards. You hear the crack. It rings out throughout the arena. 1, 2, 3. Match is over. My goodness. One of the craziest matches. This is the kind of stuff that Jon Moxley wanted to do in WWE, and now we know why he wanted to do this stuff. Because you would not see this in WWE today, maybe if ever. But man, Moxley and he came out and he walked past us. He was jazzed as hell, man. He was so pumped. Like, I guess when the cameras had gone off, he was hyping us up and like, that was a great match, wasn't it? AEW, that's right there. AEW, that's where I'm at, man. That's where we do this kind of stuff. I was like, wow, Moxley is pumped about this. He was so happy after that match. Meanwhile, I'm looking at my phone, and I see Renee Young said he got a tweet going, I hate this. It is crazy. I wonder, Ibushi probably wasn't watching because he was probably wrestling at the same time. I'm sure he wasn't happy about this, but as far as Kenny's concerned. But, man, after the match, took Kenny forever to get up. Kenny finally got up. He left the ring, and very somber. We didn't get any post-match, partying silliness or anything. There was no speech. They didn't play it off. Omega sold it. And his eye was messed up. Like, when he walked past us, you got to see his eye up real close. His eye was messed up. I don't know if that was from the biting or whatever it was, but, man, both of those guys were banged up. Moxley's back was just full of just slashes all over it. It was crazy, man. That is one of the craziest things I've seen in a long time in like, mainstream wrestling shows. Just crazy. I'm going to be interested to see if that reflects in the ratings this coming week, if the ratings are going to go up, because people, this is one of those matches that are going to be legendary. And it's funny, I just had a conversation with somebody the other day about Kenny Omega. Is he going to be able to, and with the AEW roster, is there anybody he can have any of these matches like he had back in New Japan, where people were like, oh, you got to see this guy Kenny Omega and Okada. You got to see Kenny Omega and Ibushi. You got to see Kenny Omega and Naito. I don't know if there's anybody in AEW you can have that moment with. He's had it now. But this is not the way we thought Kenny Omega would be getting a match of the year contender, which is through some ultra violent hardcore match. If you had told me that a year ago, I would have said you were crazy. But if anybody can pull it off, much like Shawn Michaels 20 years ago, in the Hell in a Cell, I didn't think Michaels would have been able to have a match of the year. He was a finesse wrestler. How could he have match of the year in something brutal and barbaric like Hell in a Cell? Well, this is pretty much Kenny Omega's Hell in a Cell, if we're comparing him and Shawn Michaels. Again, showing that Omega has wrestled old school style and done great. He's wrestled modern style, of course, which he's known for and done great. Now he's wrestled hardcore and done excellent hardcore. If you worry about, I saw somebody talking about him in his jazz hands or whatever, him doing jazz hands or whatever. It's like, whatever, if that's what you're focused on and you're not acknowledging all this great shit that this dude has been doing the last 3 or 4 years, I don't know, you're focusing on the wrong stuff. So overall, I love the show. I absolutely love the thing. As far as being there live, the atmosphere was great. It was a great time. Didn't feel like it was too long, even though apparently the show did run too long, because by the time it was over, it was like 11:30. But man, I had a great time with this show. It was a lot of fun. Flew by for me. So that was a great live wrestling show to attend. And we can put Moxley and Omega up there with some of the legendary brawls in the Baltimore Arena. Ric Flair and Terry Funk, Kevin Sullivan and Chris Benoit, so on and so forth. This is up there with those legendary brawls in the Baltimore Arena. The history of that old arena. So, man, I had a lot of fun. And let me tell you something about the refs. That one ref, he is a tiny little dude. He's got to be all 5'3". This dude is short. I am not very tall. You know, I'm just barely average height. And this guy is small. Some of these dudes are small. I go to the after party. This is another funny thing. There's an after party that they had. This is the only thing I got to attend for StarCast. And I think, who was it? Penelope, what's-her-face was there. The librarian, Peter Avalon, was there. I talked to him for a second. Nyla Rose was there. Funny thing about Nyla Rose is I went and shook her hand and said, you know, thank you for what you're doing. You know, I think you're doing a good job. And she's like, what did I do? And she's very short. And Peter Avalon is very short. And a lot of these people were very, very short. They were shorter than I thought they would be. It's just kind of, which again, it's kind of odd for me, you know, being a kid, I guess growing up as a kid as a wrestler, all the wrestlers were always like huge and bigger than me. And this is the new era of wrestling. I know somebody out there's going to be screaming vanilla midgets or some crap like that, but these guys are stars. It's just impressive. It's just weird to me that they're all like my height or shorter. It's like, wow, this is different. So, yeah, that's the experience. The after party was okay. It was just kind of like some promotional thing, and some weird guy came up to me and started complaining that Jericho wasn't there. I'm like, you really think Jericho was going to be here? Like, what is? I don't know. It's weird, but most of the wrestling fans I met were really cool. It's so nice. It's so much nicer to meet wrestling fans in person than on the internet. It was a real pleasure to do that, and I don't know, not so much with doing it over the online Twitter machines and whatnot. But anyway, that is my review of my live experience at AEW Full Gear. Let me know what you guys thought from watching it at home, or if you did attend, let me know your experiences there. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Until then, I'll see you guys for more news, rumors, and commentary here on Rassslin Rantin. Have a good day.